Hey everyone, and welcome back to Open. So this year's iconic Photoville Festival returns in all 5 boroughs of New York City, and now in its final days, they remain committed to highlighting stories of hope, joy, and compassion with an outstanding group of artists and programming partners to curate and present over 85 free outdoor photo exhibitions. Which leads us to our next guest, Bronx's own legendary photographer, filmmaker, Edwin Pagán, who has his very own photographic showcase titled Los Inocentes. Los Inocentes is a documentary photo essay that focuses on the resiliency of children who live in urban communities in less than ideal circumstances, who prevail and thrive beyond their environments in the South Bronx, Spanish Harlem, and the Lower East Side. And joining us now to share more, we welcome back multidisciplinary artist Edwin Pagán. Hello and welcome, Edwin.
Glad to be back. Thanks for always supporting the work that we do.
Absolutely, it's a community affair, isn't
That's
it?
right.
And this latest exhibition that is on display it's kind of we were discussing prior to getting on air. It's so important to share the relevance of our culture, right? Our culture, and when I say our culture, I mean our urban culture, not just our Puerto Rican culture or Latino culture, but our urban flavored culture, which is what is on display with
That's
this
correct.
particular photo exhibition, right? And you chose children.
I did. And the reason for that is that, children don't put up a facade. And also when I started doing photography when I was about 10 years old with the Hoe Avenue Boys Club, is what I related to. So it was the easiest thing for me to photograph. And 90% of the time, if I passed by a young child, almost about my own age, would always tell me, what about me? And I would just, and it became a thing. But then looking at all of the negatives over the years, I realized that I have kind of 35 years plus of photographs of children throughout the Bronx and New York City and the Lower East Side. And the series came together when I started realizing that there was that thread. And that's what turned ultimately in the last couple of years into Los Inocentes, the Innocents.
Right, the Innocents, right. I forgot to translate that into English. But I think at this point, our viewers know that it's like, oh, pull out a dictionary. We're going to learn some Spanish with Rhina.
That's right.
Because we do Spanglish here on Open Fridays. Pero thank you for translating that. And so the images that we were just showing, I just wondered, like, because you can tell that they're authentic and they're reactive, right? How is it that you're able to, like, have been able to form these relationships with these random children on the street, and just also you basically are keeping them alive, right? Because some of these photos they look like they're from like the 70s, 80s. And
oh, they are. It's interesting because one of the things that I learned early on, because I was this little skinny kid with a camera bag that weighed about 60 pounds over my shoulder with 2, 3 cameras, flashes, whatever. And I used to walk around and I learned the rhythm of seeing a group of people or individuals and basically photographing around them. And ultimately, they would always kind of like forget about me, and then I could shoot them without necessarily disturbing them. But then I would also try to get environmental portraits of them, and they would be participating. But I could go and I could see a group of men playing dominoes, and I wouldn't go straight up to them and invade their privacy. I'd kind of, work the shot, and ultimately they'd forget about me, and I'd zoom in and get the shots. And they would even allow me to come in and say, mira, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna do capicu, and I'd get them slamming the domino. But it becomes about that instead of just looking, you're seeing.
Right.
And that becomes something that becomes ingrained in you after a while as an artist,
Right. And the images that we also were showing, I think there's one of like a kid jumping on a mattress in a lot. And that's why it was so important for me to emphasize the urban culture, because while that may look depressing to some people, it was a means of pastime and,
Yeah.
and what there was to create a playground. We're looking at it right now.
That's right. That particular image is called Jumping Jacks, and I was taking almost where the art theater was in an abandoned lot, headed up toward Simpson, the train station Simpson on Southern Boulevard. And, I used to do this. And this image speaks to the resilience of kids in urban communities specifically, because what they were doing was they were creating a playground where one didn't exist.
Right.
So they would gather up the mattresses, et cetera, and they'd jump on them and they'd have a great time. And, the thing about children is that you hear that sound of them having a great time, the laughter, the screaming, the running around. And you can almost see it in the photos.
Yes.
I still remember it because I was there, but it's that thing. And then we were written off as a community by so many in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s that to be able to pull out what I call the receipts.
Right.
It wasn't the way you said, here it is. We didn't lack anything, right?
Right.
We had a great time. We just didn't have the infrastructure
Right.
and the resources.
Right.
But our parents raised us,
Right.
like in any neighborhood. And under great pressure,
Right.
the pressure cooker that was the burning of the Bronx.
Right.
I think people from other communities probably would have just had a nervous breakdown under those conditions, but we were tough and we're still here. And archives like this, of mine and others, there are many, are a testament to that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also going back to what I said earlier with regards to the relevance, right, of the pump, right?
Right.
If you're a New Yorker, then you know that's what we looked forward to in the summer.
That's right.
Was the pompa,
That's right.
the water, the
And we
with
all
the
did that,
can.
and
Yeah.
we all played that way. It was
Right,
amazing.
look, we're looking at it now. I love how
Yeah.
you captured the shopping cart, and look, they're in the street. I mean, like, this is a New York thing.
And if you look on the other side of the police car, there's a couple of kids there having a great time, a conversation with the police, because they weren't necessarily stopping from doing that. They were probably just telling them be careful,
Right.
or whatever. It was a great upbringing. And
I was also taken by this photo because of the way he posed for you.
Yeah, and here's where the artistic thing comes in, because in that image, this is near the building, and Melrose, near the air rights buildings, past Cortlandt Avenue, and I was just walking around. Again, I lived further uptown, and I would just travel the South Bronx walking around, and I came across these young men having a great time. And I asked in that instance, could I take their picture? And I actually had to get my feet in the water because the water was coming at me, but I didn't care. And I took the shot. The little man, as soon as I had the camera up, he posed very regally,
Right.
very proud that his
Right.
photo
Can we show
was
that
gonna
picture
be
one more
taken.
time just so that we can show everybody how regal he looked? Look at that.
And then as an artist, I made the choice. This is a 35 millimeter negative, and it was a vertical shot, but I cropped his brothers or his friends out because I wanted the attention just to be on the young
On
man.
him.
You know that he's there with someone. And that's part of, the editorial process of what you're trying to say in an image.
Yeah, and so thank you guys for bringing that back up just so that we can share with our viewers. This is on display, mi gente, publicly in the outdoors, which leads me to, before we go, let's talk about the essay and why you've chosen to tell this story and how you've chosen to tell it through these visuals.
Well, again, the idea of Los Inocentes is just using our most precious resource to sort of show that our community is resilient, that we're still here, that we've been here, and also in the ways that we interact with each other as children, as young people, and the years that are involved in the display, the current display, Los Inocentes, is from 1987 until about 2003, and so they run the gamut. It's a
How
very
many?
There are 20 in the exhibit. There are about 300 in the actual series, but of course for the benefit of this installation, we had to choose a certain number. And that was interesting in itself, what stays and what goes. And I think we sort of found a nice medium that even has a picture of me as a young man sitting with some of these
Great,
kids.
yeah,
in an
can we show
empty
that
lot.
image too? Because I saw it, I love it.
Yeah.
Tú estabas bien joven tú mismo.
long time ago. But it's a good way to involve the community, to show them where we've come from, And as Ricky Flores and David Gonzalez always say, it's a part of our extended family album, right? And I always say, no Bronxites were ever harmed in the making of my art.
Beautifully said. Oh my gosh. And so before we go, what do you hope, let's say a person who may come from a different borough to experience this, leaves with?
Well, that the stories you've heard are not true.
Right.
That we were in a community that burned down our own community, that we lived through it, and with a dignity. Because if you see all these pictures, you may have burnt out buildings in the background, you may have empty lots with rubble in them. But if you look at the faces of our youth, you can tell that there was life there, there was energy, vibrant. You can almost hear the music in the background. And I think, you know, it's just to change that sort of perception,
right,
that it wasn't what you heard.
That's right.
That we lived through it, we experienced it, and we documented it from the inside. We didn't parachute in
right,
to try to get a story that was slanted for your editorial.
Right.
Right. This is the real deal, and
right,
we have the receipts.
It says that the receipts. Okay.
We have the receipts.
I love that you use that term. He's like, we got the receipts. This is as authentic as it gets. All right, thank you. Edwin Pagán, everyone, making sure that our narratives are told from our lenses.
That's right.
Once again, Los Inocentes, he's the photographer and curator, is going to be on display, right? And before that, I just want to mention, you still have time to catch the Photoville Festival. It's running until Sunday, June 16th at various locations across all the 5 boroughs. However, Edwin Pagán's Los Inocentes will be on display until August 1st at Van Cortlandt Park, which is located at 5920 Broadway in the Bronx. And if you're interested in more information on the Photoville Festival, you can visit photoville.nyc. And for more on Edwin and his artwork, you can visit thepaganimage.com. All right, stay tuned. Our Open Artist Spotlight is coming up next.